Hey guys, welcome back to AniStory Recaps. In today's video, we are going to explain 7 senses of the reunion from 2018. The story begins in the future when games have advanced to the point where players can fully immerse themselves in the game environment. Union, an MMO game that is essentially a virtual reality, is immensely popular all over the world. We follow our primary characters who are elementary school pupils who belong to a group called Subaru. They are well known for having some of the top players in Union virtual reality. The group's 6 members are led by Haruto Amō. The Subaru gang enters the MMO one day for a typical task to explore a dungeon. While everything appears to be normal at first, they are soon attacked by a powerful dungeon boss. Haruto is then attacked directly by the dungeon boss. As a result, our other primary protagonist, Asahi Kuga, steps in to defend him, and her avatar in the game is slain while protecting Haruto. Later, the pals return to their normal lives and everything appears to be okay. However, a shocking event occurs after a few days. In the real world, Asahi dies of heart failure. The game Union is shut down when the news breaks. There are conflicting claims, but some believe that because her avatar was hurt in the game, her real body suffered as well. The game is subsequently cancelled and the friend group disintegrates. Many of them blame Haruto for what happened to Asahi, who died in his defense. 6 years later, the Union sequel is released. The company has confirmed that the game is now completely safe. They even rebranded it as Reunion to make the game's launch even more exciting. Special invites are issued to players in order for them to participate. Haruto is subsequently revealed to be living a rather pitiful life. He hasn't recovered from what occurred all those years ago and is still in a lot of agony. During his humdrum existence, Johnny receives an opportunity to play the new Reunion MMO. Haruto accepts the invitation and logs on because he has nothing else going on throughout his life. He explores the gaming environment and goes on dungeon missions while playing. While in the dungeon, he discovers a treasure chest and opens it to discover Asahi asleep within. Haruto is surprised to see his old friend alive, but he has a lot of questions. She doesn't appear to have aged at all, as her avatar appears exactly the same as it did all those years ago. Haruto converses with Asahi, and throughout their conversation, he realizes that she still believes they are 6 years in the past, and that they are still on that failed mission. Haruto tries to discover a means to get her out of the game, but it is found that she is trapped and cannot log out. This guild was their adversary in the first game, and they've returned to do the job. The players immediately attack Haruto, so Asahi activates Sense, a power that players had in the earlier edition of the game. Haruto doesn't have this power as he came from the new version, but Asahi can give him hers. This power allows the player to easily predict the opponent's moves and attacks, which gives Haruto a huge advantage. But before he can finish off the enemy, Takanori Mikado arrives at the scene, who is a former member of the Subaru guild, but now he has a totally new guild called Illuminati. With his new guild, he defeats the enemy with ease. Later, after logging out of the game, a girl who has a secret crush on Haruto called Satsuki goes to visit him. She tells Harsho that he needs to face his past mistakes and that running away is not the answer. Satsuki and Haruto then agree to meet up in the game. After the login, they find each other and go on a journey together. Some time passes, and Haruto arrives in a cave where he meets a girl called Alicia, who turns out to have information about Asahi and how she is still part of the game. Alicia also warns Haruto that he is a target of numerous people. Satsuki sees Asahi and Haruto talking and connecting, making her extremely jealous, and in turn she deviously takes Asahi aside to explain some things to her. She tells her that Harsho has changed a lot in the past 6 years and he is not a good person. Asahi is shocked by this, and when Harsho hears what Satsuki said about him, they get into a heated argument. The argument upsets Haruto so much that he decides to log out of the game to take a break. Satsuki doesn't know how to express her feelings to him, so she just ends up being mean to him sometimes. After some time, Satsuki visits Haruto and reminds him of their past. Haruto remembers that 6 years ago, all members of the Subaru guild exchanged special rings and swear to always be there for each other. This motivates Haruto and he returns to the game. He meets up with Asahi once more, and their plan is to gather valuable materials that can be used to build a special ring that Haruto gave Asahi in the past. Satsuki also gathered materials and made a ring for herself, joining them on their quest. The 3 friends go into a dangerous dungeon, and after exploring it, they come to the place where they had their final quest that resulted in Asahi dying. They once again encounter the dungeon boss, a huge dragon. This time the dragon is summoned by Alicia. The 3 friends try to fight off the dragon, but they start to lose. But at that moment, Peridot remembers the swear he made to Asahi. They promise to always be there for each other, and most of all, to protect each other. In that moment, Haruto awakens his sense power and manages to defeat the dungeon boss with ease. The three friends find their way out of the dungeon cave, and just in, a strange artifact falls out from a sauce outfit. Haruto touches the object and has strange visions that show him some answers about what is going in this game. Through the world of Reunion spreads rumors that Haruto and his friends defeated one of the powerful bosses in the game. This also gets the notice of various enemy guilds, one of them being the Southern Cross Guild, who finally go on to attack Haruto and his party. After a while, the Brill Society Grill and their leader called Angelus asks Haruto to join their guild. However, he refuses as he remains loyal to his friends and his guild. Haruto, along with Satsuki and Asahi, then go on another quest. This time, their quest takes them to the Tower of Heaven, which is a special dungeon that they had trouble with in the past, as they were just too low level and it was always too hard. During their quest through the tower, they are faced by a dungeon boss which attacks the group and wrecks Satsuki, who feels that Haruto is not a good leader and for a moment loses her trust in him. After some time, they defeat the dungeon boss but are faced by Takanori and his guild members. Takanori warns Haruto to stay out of his way and to leave Asahi alone. Haruto refuses to just abandon his friend, and he gets ready to face Takanori in battle. But just before the battle begins, Satsuki comes between them and stops it from happening. Takanori then tells Haruto that things will never return back to normal and that he will never join Subaru again. So now their friendship seems beyond repair. After this happens, Haruto continues investigating Asahi, and he finds several clues connected to Clive Vivoli, a young man who is the only foreign member of Subaru, and Nozomi Kusaka, a shy and introverted girl of Subaru who has feelings for Takanori. Haruto tries but cannot find any traces of them inside the MMO world. Elsewhere, Takanori has decided to combine his Illuminati guild with Southern Cross and Brill Society. All these players form a new super guild called Divine, and Takanori thinks that now they will be non-stop. Haruto and his party get separated while they are faced with a thick fog. In the fog, the members of Divine manage to kidnap Asahi. It seems that Takanori trusted the wrong players as members of his new guild betrayed him. Haruto gets into a combat state, but manages to escape when he is helped by Alicia. Satsuki fights against the Fog and Divine members and escapes on her own. Haruto then decides to go rescue Asahi on his own. He makes his way to the place where Asahi has been taken hostage. Haruto gets himself ready, knowing that he will face a large number of Divine members. Satsuki suddenly has a flood of memories from her past. She recalls that for a long time she thought of herself as weak and fragile, but it was Asahi who comforted her. She recalls how much Asahi meant to her as a friend. In the present, Satsuki goes to Takanori and asks him to help Haruto rescue Asahi, as it is the least they can do to protect their friend. Haruto reaches his goal and starts a battle with Divine members. He fights several of them at once and does pretty well at the beginning, but soon more members join in the battle and Haruto is overpowered by the enemy. However, just before he loses, Satsuki and Takanori arrive to help. They manage to hold off the Divine fighters and they face off against Angelos, who is holding Asahi captive. Haruto and Takanori become cornered in battle, but Satsuki finally manages to awaken her sense, and with it she defeats the guild members. So now it's only Angelus and the Southern Cross leader against Haruto and his friends. Angelus then turns into a giant monster, but Haruto and his friends manage to defeat him and finally free Asahi. They all escape the situation and return to safety using a special object called the Prophet Art. The group learns that Asahi is some sort of failed experiment, and we come to discover that it seems the gaming company has something to do with her creation. Elsewhere, Clive and Alicia watch them from a distance, planning something troublesome for the group. It seems that their goal is for members of the Subaru Guild to awaken their senses powers. Asahi, Satsuki, and Haruto all go to the ocean and board a pirate ship that is led by Aoi of the captainy. The ship has received intel that nearby there is a legendary sword deep underwater. Haruto finally manages to locate the sword and eventually realizes that the sword was the same one he had in the previous Union game. He dives in but sees that the sword is being guarded by a sea dragon called Eager. Haruto tries to fight the sea dragon, but he struggles as he's finding it difficult to fight underwater. Then suddenly, Clive shows up and helps the crew retreat to safety. The players then return to the real world where Takanori meets with Haruto and Satsuki. Takanori decides to share some vital information with his former friends. He tells him that he found out information regarding a mysterious company called Gnosis that is planning something sinister using the MMO game. He also believes that this strange company somehow faked Asada's death. This information surprises Haruto, but shortly after he realizes that something more is going on behind this entire relaunch of the MMO game. They also find out that their former friend Naomi is returning to town. After a long time, Haruto logs back into the game and with his party, he tries to find the sword once more. They go underwater, but with the help of Clive they manage to move easier while swimming. The group finally defeats Igor, and Haruto tries to retrieve his old sword, but the moment he touches it, Clive reveals his true intentions and betrays the group, stabbing Haruto without mercy. Haruto loses himself and everything goes black, but finally he wakes up in an alternative reality that was created by Asahi's prophet art. There he wakes up after 6 years, as it seems that in this reality his character died instead of Asahi. In this world, Haruto was in a coma for 6 years. Militia then arrives and informs Haruto that senses can be used in the real world. The Union game was created by Noses to train and test senses powers so that they will finally achieve an ultimate sense power. However, it is revealed that the game is actually just a test. Haruto finds Asahi and tells her that this is not his reality and he needs to get back to his world to help his friends. Asahi understands and she sends him back to his reality, but this time she sends him just moments before Clive stabs him. Peridot now has time to react and he blocks the attack from Clive. Haruto realizes that his friend Clive would remain loyal, so this must be a fake creation that is acting like Clive. His friends help Haruto retrieve the sword and they defeat Igor once and for all. They then find out that Alicia tried to contain her sense power in a red stone, but it couldn't contain the power, so it ended up shattering into many pieces. Haruto realizes that the fragment there must be part of that stone. He tells the rest of his group what he learned from Alicia and explains everything he knows about Noses and Union. The rest of the Subaru members now realize that they must stop the company. Clive informs them that they need to find Nozomi and make her awaken her, since later in the day the group learns that Nozomi has become a model and she doesn't play video games anymore, and ever since I saw he died, Nozomi hasn't been able to play any sort of game as the event scared her too much. Later, Satsuki finds her courage and she decides to talk to Haruto. She tells him that she has feelings for him and he needs to make a decision about their relationship at the dance. The following night, a ball dance is held within the game. Haruto and Takanori argue at Asahi's burial. They dispute about who should defend Asahi, and Takanori finally forgives Haruto, allowing them to mend their friendship and eventually allowing Haruto to dance with Asahi. Takanori dances with Satsuki, who appears to be spurned by Haruto at the event. Satsuki is brokenhearted, although she tries hard not to show it. Meanwhile, Nozomi has been invited to take part in reunion. She debates lobbing on for a while, but then remembers how Takanori helped her in elementary school. Nozomi fell in love with him as a result of this. Nozomi enters the game recalling those pleasant recollections. She arrives at the ball and sees Takanori dancing with Satsuki, which causes her to cry. Two strange-looking Noses agents approach her and invite her to work for their organization. Haruto, Takanori, and Satsuki explore Nozomi's residence. She has been absent for several days. They realize that Nozomi logged into the game and played for a bit before she vanished. They also receive information from Clive, who can track her movements, so they may be able to locate her within the game world. They all log into the game and travel to that place, but they are ambushed by strange creatures. They eventually defeat them, and then Nozomi arrives out of nowhere. She's unique. It appears that she has been indoctrinated. Two Gnosis operatives, the same ones who kidnapped her, stand by her side. Their names are Martian and Sorrentes. Peridot and his group fight the Gnosis agents, but they are unable to land any of their attacks because the Gnosis agents are simply too powerful. The zombie then casts a curse on Asahi, forcing Haruto and his party to flee. Haruto, Takanori, and Satsuki return to the real world to devise a plan. Takanori discovers in the real world that Naomi has affections for him. He knows that seeing him dancing with Satsuki drove her over the edge, but before they can devise a plan, all three of them begin to feel dizzy. A Gnosis member appears and praises the Subaru guild members for rekindling their friendship. The unknown individual then vanishes, and Haruto chooses to return to reunion to put an end to this. Meanwhile, Asahi awakens from a nightmare. She's actually napping at the base as Haruto returns to the game. The base is then destroyed and the party is forced to flee. Haruto and his group enter a dungeon that has recently arisen in the game, and they find that Asahi's sense is acting strangely. Nozomi, Sarens, and Martian then confront the party. Takanori resolves to bring Nozomi back. He regrets never addressing her sentiments. Then Nozomi assaults him. Takanori, on the other hand, does not dodge any of her strikes and eventually manages to hub Nozomi, restoring her to normalcy. Asahi then unexpectedly shoots Haruto. Her sense appears to have affected her conduct and made her angry with Haruto. Haruto is on the ground attempting to recover from his wounds. It is revealed that Asahi contains a goddess who is a part of the Gnosis plan. This creature is meant to create a paradise for humanity. Sarens attacks Clive during this time, but Alicia staves him. Haruto recalls his vow to Asahi, which gives him the courage to restore his senses. Haruto then beats Martian and Sarens, and the war is finally finished. Nozomi fashions a new sheath for Haruto's sword. The victorious Subaru party exits the game. Takanori then goes to meet Naomi and confesses his feelings for her. After some time, the group continues to go on additional quests as they have restored their guild. The Noses Company's deeds become public, and it is then revealed that Alicia is also a member of Subaru. And this finishes the anime here. Make sure to like and subscribe if you liked it. See you in the next video. Take care and goodbye.